Am I live? Am I live? Yes. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And this is another episode of Study Life with me. And this time we are doing a little bit of mundane astrology. And the way these episodes go, for those of you who have been watching my channel, is basically as it says. I press record and I study something live on camera. So I'm going to approach this knowledge from this particular point of view for the first time in my life. And I'm going to see the data fresh with you. Okay, if you're looking for a more like refined version, then feed me. My PayPal is madeitolovemagic1 strudelgmail.com, and the more I am well fed, the more I am refined and have time to have dedication. So if you want me to do a refined episode or invest like in better equipment, and you find that important to you, so if enough people fund that, I will eventually do that. And I remind you that an investment is a donation and a donation is an investment. That means you're not guaranteed to yield. You can't get your money back. Now, the chart for today, first of all, this is a Venus day, so I hope you are having a relaxed Venus day. We started off with the moon separating from intense square to Uranus today, and then it kept on. Mercury ingressed into Pisces, and so Mars and Venus are still quite tight. Some of you have good time with this. Some of you have it in their 12th houses and are not necessarily enjoying this in the bedroom. So now the moon is in 22 degrees Leo, and I find this compatible for the type of astrological conversation that we are going to have. The moon is ruling the ascendant. This is a soul hour with Sun in the 9th house in Pisces, 4 degrees applying to conjunct Saturn, with Mercury catching up. So Mercury, Sun and Saturn are going to join after the full moon. And we are approaching a full moon, so it's a good time to talk about this. Why moon and fourth house in the charts of nations? Okay, so let me begin with, first of all, after defining the research topic, which is basically looking at the situation of the fourth house ruler and the moon in the charts of nations. This is a part of astrological considerations for this declarations of independence, which is awfully relevant for the times that we are in, whether we're going to have whichever types of political entities we're going to have. And the reason is that those significations are the significations of the people. And since we are in Pluto in Aquarius time, so heading towards revolutions, by the way, not only in the United States, but also in countries like Israel, when Uranus is going to have Uranus return upon its ingress to Gemini. I know this is almost a decade, but this is to expand on this is a topic for another episode. And so we're going to have a lot of social revolutions, but also a lot of global evolutions. This is Pluto in Aquarius times, the time from the French Revolution, the American Independence War, and so we are redefining structure in Aquarius. And that means we are redefining not only the structures of science and society, but also the structures of what we call regimes. Okay, the last time around, we basically have decentralized a lot of kingdoms. Okay, so the royalty survived, but its role diminished, and the kings and queens that were quick to adapt, like England, survived this fairly easily. whereas people that were a bit more stubborn, perhaps in France, had to go with the spirit of the times. And so right now the unit of the common global unit of analysis is not the kingdom per se, there are still kingdoms, but the nation state. So the whole issue of the nation state began with the we the people, then 300 years later it would evolve to building separate states defined by peoples or what used to be tribes. Okay, so the pro about that is that people got to have their own regime, or supposedly got to have their own regime, more decentralized than kingdom, or supposedly. The difficulty is, of course, the conversations that we still have today, where the dependence of a person upon a citizenship, they have to show some sort of affinity to some 9,000 years ago. That is ridiculous. Or, of course, the cones that we've seen during, Nazi Germany, where they were striving upon Germanic tribes and kidnapping children from Poland and Nordic countries and doing really weird things to kind of like connect people with the motherland, or the idea of motherland when Aries was in Pisces. So, by the leaders, yes, not by the events. So now we are already in Pluto and Aquarius. We are already in a time of decentralization. Our unit of analysis is not the kingdom per se, it's also the kingdom. It's also the kingdom, but it's also the nation state, because we are embarking upon this time with a unit of analysis, okay, in terms of the politics of the nation state. And so a lot of decentralizations of the nation states are going to arise. We are having both the kind of question of globalism and what type of globalism. Okay, who and where do not necessarily see globalism as the old Dutch citizen of the world sees globalism. When I say old, I mean recent, yes? So it's very interesting time, a lot of changes, a lot of voices, and this is a time where we still get to talk about astrology live, and so it's important to see when we have a new unit of analysis, be it the nation state or a Medina, okay, or a republic, or whatever we're going to come up with, an elephant, I don't know, for a unit. What represents the people, i.e. we the people, is the 4th house, its ruler, and the moon. Now, for the sake of being, how should I say, lazy, okay, because this is not a good consideration per se, I will use whole sign houses. Yes, whole sign houses is perfectly predictable, but my choosing this is for the sake of simplicity. I haven't done a comparative study on house division and which is more efficient. I just find this to be efficient and predictive. So I work with this also to have one less layer of complexity for you, my dear viewers. So what I'm going to do right now is basically randomly pick countries and take a look at their natal charts. So I want to not lose too many viewers, so I'm going to pick a main country that is in the topic and see if I have a natal chart. So I have discussed the country of Ukraine, which is what prompted this episode, because what I saw there I didn't like at all, but this is a separate episode. Let's do Russia. Natal chart. So this is not too Western, not too marginalized. I hope you still can concentrate with me. And I'm using Astro Theme, which is fairly reliable for the chart division. They are giving me something of 862, okay, in Novgorod, Russia. So this is quite old. It's not going to be all the considerations, but I will not ignore this data. Because even at the time of kingdoms, and the fourth house is still the people, the moon is still the people. As I'm looking at this for the first time in my life, seeing this chart, and I'm going to use whole signs. So this means that ascendant 29 degrees Scorpio, if this is indeed true, and the moon will be in Cancer 5 degrees, which actually is a fortunate degree according to Nicholas Stoyanovich degree theory, which strikes me as a surprise, and in the 9th house in Cancer. I don't remember particularly the non-lethal degrees by Nicholas Stoyanovich, so I will have to freshen up. But first of all, the moon itself in Cancer is at home. I don't know if it is out of bounds or other considerations. Yes. And in terms of aspects, so it is square in the midheaven, square in Sun, square in Saturn. For the more accurate aspects, we have, yes, it's basically those squares. Yes, if we, and the moon conjuncts Uranus with a wider orb. It's an 8-degree orb. Not everybody allows that, but I think it is fair enough. So what does this moon tell me? First of all, it is in Cancer. So this is a good thing. It is in 5 degrees, which is not a bad degree to be at. The difficulty is coming more from either traditional religion or something of the like of a bureaucracy. Okay, and if we're talking about the times of kingship, so the people who were doing the ministries, okay, so the minister of this, the minister of that, they were the more problematic issue for the people. Also, Saturn rules debt and thus as well taxation. And so debt and taxation upon the people was more problematic. And so in the time of kingdom, it makes a lot of sense, okay? Sun square moon, yes, it is, the sun is considered a malefic, but it's not like a Mars or Saturn, okay? Sun square moon simply means, I don't know if it's, let's look if it is an opening square. Back. It simply means we are in a half Carter moon, and this is a closing half Carter, last Carter moon, yes. So the moon phase is more towards closing something. There is with the leaders or with the kings, because this is a square and Sun is the kingdom, the kings, the leaders. What I'm more concerned about is this Saturn, and Sun is conjunct in Saturn, and so whether this chart was pre-elected or not pre-elected, the problem of the people came from the king and from taxation and debt. Okay, so Moon Uranus could give us people that could revolt. Okay, so again, this is an incredibly old chart, more than a millennia old chart, actually. So Moon Uranus, Uranus is about unpredictability, but to the extreme. And when it comes to the people, it means both that the emotional lives are unpredictable. It's like a storm, and then the person can be reactive. So even if it's unreasonable for this person to rebel, they might do it. And so this is actually a strong point because it means that there is only so much that the people will take without even irrationally being reactive. And I did a Moon Uranus episode in natal charts of people. Definitely brought some really unpredictable stuff. And while Moon Uranus is not the quiet one, okay, it's not an energy that one can suppress. It can give you the type of a person that rebels authority, or even the mothering character if it is Moon. But either for what seems to be no reason, it doesn't mean that there is no reason, it's what seems to be no reason, or against all odds. Okay, you want to think about the situation where, let's say, a child is very reliant on the parents, and they don't have any other source of income, of food, of shelter, and they rebel at the parent. The parent says something, the child doesn't like it, whether either of them is right or not. The child just says, no, I'm not continuing with you, and just stands there in the snow. We don't know what's going to happen, okay? So far, very interesting chart, can allow for evolution of the people. It tells me that if the taxation, for example, is too heavy, or if the restriction of the king are too heavy, there's a lot of reasoning here, because the people will rebel, even if it is unreasonable. Okay, I did not expect to see this. So let's go to the ruler of the fourth and the ruler of the fourth. So if Scorpio is the first house, yes, then Aquarius here will be the fourth. That means that Saturn is the ruler of the fourth. So now we get another interesting thing, because Aquarius, first of all, it's the Saturn that is outside of the structure. It's a kind of a lighter, brighter Saturn. It doesn't mean that he's all rosy and shiny and glowy. Okay, so it just means that this is a Saturn that redefines the structure. I have to admit, I have no idea what is the history of Russia around this time. Okay, so I'm looking at charts here. But I will definitely check this out in later. And Aquarius, first of all, for fourth house, it gives us people that are individualistic, that have resilience, but also they can stand out of the crowd. They can be dogmatic just as well as a fixed sign. Yes, but is more, how should I say it? It's not the kind of restriction of the tradition. They could be even science-oriented. Okay, they could be interested in sciences. Saturn here with the Sun is in Libra, but in the 12th house. And so this tells me that this is a nation, or a nation is a very modern word to describe this. This is a kingdom where the people could be living in isolation, but in proximity to the leaders. I don't understand what I'm seeing here. Yes, I don't know to describe this. But the ruler of the fourth house is right next to the Sun. The people could even restrict the leaders. The people, I don't know in what way, yes, but the ruler in the 12th tell me that people could also, together with the king, be sent to exile, and whichever sort of exile it was, or jailing. I think exile was more the costume back then. And so many of the people would be exiled, but this was because of the king. Why? Because of the conjunction. It means to me that the king could also be exiled with the people. So I have to admit, I don't know the history around this, but this is very interesting to observe. You see that also the ruler, one ruler of the people, which is Saturn, the ruler of the fourth house, first of all, it's exalted in Libra, but in the 12th house, which is a house of loss, a house where you have to surrender things, and is squaring the other ruler that's associated with the people, and that is the moon. It means that there are certain dissonances that are held at that time. And when the people rebel the king, they are rebelling themselves a bit. This could be a place where there were civil wars. Why civil wars? Okay. First of all, the two rulers of the people are in tension. So it tells me that there are tensions in society. That does not denote a war. One side of the people, actually a little bit innovative and perhaps even secular, is with the king or the queen. The other side is with the rebels. And the rebels in ninth house perhaps could be some sort of associated with international, what we now call international, so with foreign land. Yes, I'm not saying traitors, but perhaps an issue of origin, where some people originated from one place, some people are closer to the king, and those who originated from that other place are rebellious, and those that are with the king are exiled. So, and this is close to the midheaven, so this means that this chart is destined to go in a way of separation of the people into peoples, whether it's multiple peoples or it's a two-party thing. Yes, I'm getting a lot of trouble here, so, but I don't know the history, so yes, and this is a chart that was around 862 Julian calendar, September 20, and Sol in Libra. So Sol in Libra is another interesting thing here. Of course, right now we are doing tropical sign. It's not the same astrology necessarily that people did when they elected this chart. But for the sake of unity, which is another unscientific criteria, okay, I'm doing this to simplify things so that you can still follow me without getting too exhausted. It doesn't mean that you cannot go and study this yourself and look for more types of astrologies and make your own observations. It's even a call of action to do so. So Sun in Libra, we would today look at this as a sun at its fall. Because if Sun is exalted in Aries, the opposite of that is the fall. And why Sun fallen in Libra, something I explain in my evergreen teachings, is basically very simple. The Sun, the planets are surrounding, okay? So the Sun just is, it is one, as far as we know today. I'm not sure, yes, for this galaxy. Of course, it's more complex today, yes, but this is a one shining beam of light that is a center of gravity for things to gravitate around. Things also gravitate in other ways, yes, absolutely. But what it is not is one side of the scale that is to be balanced with another. And so when the Sun, which is kind of like the personality, is the kingdom that you build, to quote on Ernst Wilhelm, the kingdom that you build as a person is your shine in the world. When this is something in Libra, it is Libra only knows the scale, so it knows to put one thing against another thing and repeat this process to try to weight things against each other. It's a Venus ruled sign, weighting values against each other. Okay, it's also ruled with trade and with the justice system, but also with beauty, with symmetry, the fine arts and moral philosophy. And so yes, not philosophy per se, but if we're talking about moral philosophy, so the philosophy of morals, from a Venusian perspective of weighting, seeing the connection between the philosophy of beauty to moral philosophy, as well as weighting one moral against each other, would be a Libra term, field of philosophy. So, or religion. Sun in this place is kind of like you put the sun, the center of gravity, and then you try to weight something against this. Of course, it is a place where the sun is fallen. So let's take a kingdom, put the king on one side of the scale, and then you have to balance the scales somehow. Okay? It's very difficult for a king actually to sustainably rule in these situations. We also have to understand that in more ancient times, people saw eclipses, okay, when the moon and the sun, especially solar eclipse, when the sun is eclipsed, when the sun is as replacements or deaths of kings. And so they even did a little puppet so that they won't take the king, so they'll take the puppet. And so the situation where, yes, there is a king, but the king is replaced upon an eclipse, and we have 4 to 6 of these a year. So you understand that kingship was a lot more rejuvenating of an institution than we may predict it to be. So this is one chart of Russia. I will keep this open, and I will go to more modern charts of the same country, which is still Russian natal chart. So this is Jessica Adams. Let's see, what did she use? Okay, so the only charts that works perfectly in 2022 is the one set for the new Russia with Belarus of 1999. Yes, so Vladimir Putin's chart is DD related because it's not as accurate. Okay, she has the analysis, but I want to see the chart itself. Okay, so this looks a bit different. So shout out to jessicaadams.com if you want to visit her site directly. She makes her own analysis. I will not look at this because we're having a study here. Okay, I see a lot of things. Sun in Sagittarius here. Is this the moon? Sun and moon in Sagittarius. Do I see an ascendant? See an IC. I see an ascendant. So this one would give us ascendant Cancer, 5 degrees Cancer, which means that the 4th house would be Libra, and Venus as the ruler of Libra. Do we have Venus here? You're supposed to have, yes. So Venus is in the 2nd house in Scorpio. Sorry, in the 5th house in Scorpio. And Sun in the 6th house with the moon in the 6th house. So moon 24 degrees Sag, Sun 16 degrees Sag. Why don't I like this chart already? Well, this is for house considerations. First of all, before we talk about Venus, we'll talk about Venus. Venus stands out very loud. It's yes, it's a fallen Venus. It's a detriment Venus. I'm sorry. Fallen is in Aries. It's a detriment Venus. But before we even touch on that, the 2 luminaries, both of the leaders and of the people, are at the 6th house. Now, Sun and Moon in Sagittarius in a fire sign, it's not a bad sign. But the sixth house is a house of service. Now, when it is the kings, is no problem. Yes, they're supposed to be of service to the people. This is not a problem. Yes, if depending if they are of service to the people or of service to other things, that can be a problem. Sixth house, also the house of physical health. And sixth house is also a house of labor and slavery. And when I get the moon here, it means that the people and their leader could be enslaved. I did not expect to see this at the chart of Russia. They could be enslaved, they could have a health problem. Physically, Sagittarius is to do with the legs or with the lungs as well for Jupiter. And it tells me that the position here is draining for the people to be. And although the ascendant is ruled by Cancer, which tells me that the people have a huge role to play in this country, they are still at the position of servants and slaves. Okay, if the people were, for example, in the 10th house, the moon in the 10th house, okay, that would give me people as the rulers. That would give me more of a we the people. Have to have other considerations, yes? But the sixth house, it's taking labor to the point of being employed or employer. So it still leaves us in the class warfare or the proletariat warfare or the agrarian proletariat or whatever you want to call this, whichever Leninistic or Marxist term. It does not take the people from the servants, the laborers, the slaves, and the sick, to those who are the rulers of the country. Okay, so yes, there is decentralization. We cannot argue that Sun, that rules the king or the leader, is in a difficult house. This is a leader that could have problems, health problems, but also enmities. This is a leader that needs to serve. Okay, so it's not unreasonable to put the sun there. It has pros and cons, but to put the moon there is still not taking the people out of the problem that they have, which was that they were servants to something that is perhaps not leaving them a lot of health. Okay, that's basically the dissolution of USSR. So I don't dislike this chart, but then when I look at the fourth house ruler, it's in the fifth. Venus in the fifth, she's in her joy. Okay, but Venus in Scorpio is in detriment. Why? Venus is ruling the opposite sign, Taurus. Venus is about connecting things. Yes, Venus is also associated with the goddess of war, not just of love. So war is not strange to her, but to be only at the polarity of war and psychological crisis and evolution and real estate war. Okay, this tells me that women or the people, okay, are at a little bit, how should I say this? The fifth house, well, women could be a little bit of entertainment in such a nation. Okay, so, but also the people themselves could be a little bit of entertainment. It can also mean that, you know, there is a role to culture, there is a role to what you do for fun. And this is something that was preserved since Soviet Russia. People definitely, even if they would not have money for the bus, then they would go by foot, and they would go and see a theater show, and they would go to a museum, and the art is very valued. So Venus in the fifth still values leisure time, actually. Okay, so this is not a bad thing. And yet the Scorpionic here, it tells me that this is a type of domestic relations that can be to the detriment, can be obsessive, okay? The ways in which this can come about is that the people themselves are kind of subjected to crisis of transformation, but also crisis of a real estate. I think about the issue of oligarchy in Russia, that there is a sort of financial dependency, and oligarchy is very invested in art. Okay, so those who rule the real estate are also very invested in art. But yes, Scorpio can also be sex scandals. And this is involving the people in some way. So again, I don't know anything about those relations. I know that the relation to oligarchy is, some of them see them a little bit as saviors, some of them as oppressors, and I guess it depends on context and many things. But it does denote that the people are seen a little bit of an entertainment with the disregard for their psychological well-being. Okay, entertainment, fifth house, disregard for psychological well-being is because Venus in Scorpio values the existential crisis. Okay, I like to always give an example. I had a Scorpio friend, and we were both at a certain party, and there was a man trying to hit on us both separately. And so I was going away because I felt I'm shut down, and I like to be expressive and joyous, and I don't analyze too much. She was intrigued by this man and said how I have a lot to learn from him. He triggers so many things in me. Okay, so again, I'm not going to analyze the chart here, but in essence, this is a good analogy for Venus in Taurus, which is me, versus, let's say, a Venus in Scorpio. Okay, it's not saying she had that, but a Venus in Scorpio, she would look for this existential crisis and value the learning and growth from it over her overall psychological well-being. It's actually a journey. When this is something that happens to the people, that can put them in a situation where their psychological existential crisis is actually a form of entertainment. Mars here, let's see, where is Mars? Mars is in Aquarius in the 8th house. So their existential crisis can be a little bit of a issue for art, but also somebody can gain wealth from this. That is not necessarily the people. Okay, and this can also be wealth that is external to the people or external to the state. So the ruler of the 4th house, in detriment, she's in her joy in the 5th house, but this is a joy that can be a little bit of a two-edged sword. It's kind of when what you do for fun is not exactly good for you and can cause even loss, debt, trauma, but it also gains for other people. And the moon is in the 6th house of health problems, being subjugated in a certain way. And so the taste of freedom is missing, even though it is a Sagittarian sign. Yes, they expect you to feel free as an employee, as a slave, as a subjugated person, which actually is a detrimental to the health. So there is a lot of two-edged sword here. It's like you want freedom, yes, you're going to give you the house of freedom, but in the sixth house of slavery. You want to find a fourth house, you get Venus. And Venus, by the way, also means that the land itself is very beautiful. And indeed, Russia is incredibly beautiful. Okay? The landscapes, the nature, but also the art, the architecture. It's a great emphasis. And I know also modernly one of the people always praise Putin for the infrastructure. So probably not all across the country, but this is where the land itself would be beautiful looking as well. But yes, but at the price that the people can be toyed around. Okay, they might enjoy entertainment, but they might also be the entertainment. And here is actually not by the leader itself, or maybe yes, can be, because the ruler of the fifth is also the ruler of the 10th, and 10 is the leader. But the ruler of the 10th is also in the 8th house, which means there is hidden leadership. 8th house is what you swipe under the rug. Okay, it's a bit secretive, so there is hidden leadership, and Mars is of an estate. Okay, it's kind of a real estate, finances, banking. So this is more like oligarchy. It doesn't mean that we don't know the leader. Yes, it's not like, oh, Putin is not the leader. This is not what I say. And obviously, I have no way to know such a thing. But it just tells me that there is a hidden facet to the leadership, and there is something of a secretive, okay, around the leadership. And this secretive thing can have to do with certain assets. It can also be certain national assets, okay? It's both good and bad. If you think about states that have like hidden gas or hidden oils, okay? They don't tell about this to the world and to everybody. They just keep it secret. Yes, versus other things that, you know, there are some good secrets, there are not good secrets. So this is structure. So this is a more relevant, yes. What I do like about here, the degree for the moon is Piscean degree. It's actually very manifesting, and it's very artistic, okay. So Venus is in her joy, okay. So it's not a complete total loss. But definitely it's not the taste of freedom that we would want and aspire to following the dissolution of the USSR. Okay, that is where I'm taking this. And the more we, the people, know what to look for in a chart for declaration of independence, the more we can be informed and can even learn to elect. Okay, if we are to be the rulers or to decentralize the existing regime, yes, we want this to be for the benefit of the people. Yes, otherwise it's not we the people, it's we the people washing. Now let's go to another chart. And this is another felony. Why do I say felony? Because I'm going to look at it from a whole sign tropical zodiac, while it's absolutely not the type of astrology that's practiced. And this is the chart of China. So, and I'm going to look at a modern chart, not going to even attempt at finding the origin of a couple of millennia ago, definitely from tropic astrology. So this is a modern chart. This is from 1949, October 1. And it has ascendant in 5 degrees Aquarius, with the moon in the first house conjuncting the ascendant, 3 degrees. Ruling again 6th house Cancer. Let's take a look at the aspects for the moon before we get to the 4th house. So first of all, the moon is conjunct in the ascendant. If we talk about People's Republic of China, okay, so this election is in the name. There is a placing of the moon, the people, along with something that is defining the at least the first impression, okay, not the public reputation, but more like the first impression. But it's also very central to the state is the people. And so here, yes, we cannot say that this is a swindling or this is a detriment. No, moon in Aquarius, also United States has moon in Aquarius. It is the second Saturn sign. Yes, it is ruled, the people are ruled by Saturn, but this is not the Capricorn Saturn. It's a moon of people that are resilient, individualistic, and conjunct in the ascendant. Yes, the people and the identity of the country is in par. Okay, I cannot ignore this, and it's also important to say. Sun trine moon, I also like it. And the moon conjuncts Jupiter. Jupiter is in the 12th house. In Capricorn, it is fallen, and in the 12th, it tells me that issues of beliefs or gurus, but also children, unfortunately, can be in jail or exiled or lost, even go missing. And there is always an issue with the ruler of the 12th being the ruler of the first. That being said, having ascendant in Aquarius is not a horror. Okay, it is a fairly alternative structure type of thinking that is also dogmatic and fixed, but is a little less restrictive than. Yes, the price is that you have a Saturn Capricorn ruler for the 12th and Capricorn in the 12th, and when Jupiter is in there, then it is fallen. But yes, every chart has its issues. Okay, if you ask me, would I rather have the people in a good position or the Jupiter in a good position? Well, if the people are in a good position, it's possible for them perhaps to remedy the Jupiter. If the people are not in a good position, no Jupiter, only God can help them. You know what I mean? So it's better for them to be in a good position, even if the belief is not so correct or fortunate. But I could be wrong. Moon sextile midheaven, Moon conjunct Jupiter, and there is an inconjunction with Uranus. That is more problematic, and this is also the tightest aspect. It's yes, this is an applying aspect, and the tightest aspect is the inconjunction, and the Uranus is in Cancer in the 6th. Before I'll go to the 4th house ruler, the moon ruling the 6th house, so again we have something that's associated with the people in the 6th house. Again, the people are a bit of employees, but they have more of an identification with the identity of why are they working so hard. Okay, so it's kind of the difference between being able to relate to the nation that you are sacrificing your health for, and not even liking what you work for while working hard. So Chinese people, at least they have, with this position, some ability to at least relate, if not to the leaders, but to China. Okay, they may say, I don't like the leader, but I like China. I don't like the government, but I like China. Okay, so this is an example just to isolate the factor that this is a love for the identity of the country, not necessarily anything else. Uranus in this moon associated house and sign also bring us the ability to rebel. But here we have an issue. And this issue is very interesting. The inconjunct, first of all, is 150 degrees. Yes, if we have the opposition, then the sign next to the right and to the left is the inconjunct. What is the problem with the inconjunct in the chart of a nation? With inconjunct, we have a little bit of sacrifice. And you know where I take this? I take this from Jewel Astrology. Truth in Aspect Astrology. She's doing synastries. She loves synastries of people. But when we talk about aspects, then the 150 degree is where you either are on this side or that side. I want you to think about, let's say, the 5th house, which is children and fun and pleasure, and the 10th house, which is your public image, your career, your relationship with your elders. Okay? So either when I'm at home with my cat, I can record a podcast, yes, but if I have to go, let's say, to a conference, even if I bring the cat with me, although my cat is 6th house and not 5th house, but you know, like my child, then still my focus would be sacrificed. I will not be so focused on my child. I would be more focused on my career. And so at this time, let's say when I'm recording this podcast, I'm not focusing on playing with my cat or with leisure activity. And so there is a sacrificial relationship. What does it mean when the people are in sacrificial relationship with a certain type of revolution, which is Uranus? Right off the bat, it tells me that when people rebel, they are sacrificed. Okay? What would they rebel about? If you ask me, I say, well, this is the 6th house. They will rebel their health conditions and their working conditions. They would also rebel the conditions of giving birth. There's the 8th and the 6th as well. It's not the one-child policy necessarily, but more like the process of how you give birth or something like this, because it's also mothering, yes. And they would rebel that they have to work all the time, or that technology, they can be rebelling the fact that technology is brought about, or they could be using technology to rebel, okay, because Uranus is technology. The rebellion can be because of the national relations. What do I mean by that? Again, Uranus can be both a planet of diversity and globalism. Now, I don't mean globalism necessarily like the WHO and the WEF, but globalism like workers of the world unite, okay? And so some people may identify with one type of tribe. I know China is very diverse in terms of tribal communities. We are only hearing about extinctions and Falun Gong, but there is also great exercise for freedom of indigenous people and indigenous groups in China. Okay, there's that one, and there is this one. And so that would tell us that people could be divided in and amongst themselves around those tribal identities. So some people see China as a part of these tribes, and some people think that China has betrayed this tribe. I mean, betrayed is a strong word, but this maybe went to the direction that they are rebelling against. But this is China as a country. There can also be food wars. Yes, kind of like the French and the Italian. It can also be something like this, but amongst the tribes. And so if, for example, if you ask what is the national dish, because it's also about food and nurturing is cancer, what is the national dish of China? It could create more arguments according to this chart. I don't know if it is true, you can tell me in the comments, than you would expect. People might be fighting over this. But to the more problematic aspect, it means that whenever the people rebel, and again, around work, around a tribal association, then they are sacrificed, okay? In a very literal way, it can denote of this type of demonstrations where people are dying. And the identity of the country can be amidst this sacrificial relationship. And by the way, I did not say a word about leaders here. Okay? So I'm talking about people and people, which is interesting, because usually we hear about this type of struggle where the leaders are oppressing the people. But here it is kind of like not a civil war, but definitely some struggles and revolutions in and amongst the people evolving the identity of China. Could this be related to the question about Taiwan? I have to admit this is not sufficient enough data for me to analyze it so. Now let me take a look at the 4th house. The 4th house is Taurus. Okay, so again, Taurus would give us fertile food, fertile land in general, beautiful land. Again, indeed, China has tremendously beautiful views. It's also a fixed earth sign, so this can give some stability, but where is the ruler? And here is something quite interesting. The 10th house for a chart of a nation is the leaders. What did I say in the beginning of this episode? I said if you want the people as the leaders, you want to put them in the 10th house. And here we do have the ruler of the 4th house in the 10th house, being Venus. So this could, you say, oh, this is a utopia, where is the problem? And indeed, it's a very advanced chart. Okay, it was made in 1949, and there is a lot of interesting thing in it. And also, if we put not the moon in the 10th, okay, which is preferred, but then the moon next to the ascendant. Yes, I cannot say anything bad about this. And not in detriment, okay? The moon in Aquarius is okay. Okay, it's a little bit of an alien, it's zoning out. Like, if people told me that the moon of Finland is in Aquarius, I would believe that. Because these people, the joke there was during COVID was when you said you have to stand 2 meters at least, they said only 2 meters because they would stand 5 meters, need a lot of space from each other. So moon in Aquarius can be a bit like this. Safe space is a big word. But when you put the ruler of the 4th in the 10th, what happens? This ruler, this planet is always in detriment. Why? Because if the planet rules one sign, then it is in detriment in the other sign. Okay? And so here I cannot say that this was done on purpose to fail anybody. Because we both were given a moon next to the ascendant and in Aquarius. Yeah, we don't want the moon in Scorpio, for example. It is fallen. Moon is where we are safe. Yes, it's much better to stand 5 meters from each other than to go through existential crisis for the sake of feeling safe in your constant fight for safety. But Venus in Scorpio is also in detriment. Okay, what did we say about the chart of the USSR that we've previously seen, also with the Venus in Scorpio? Then it was in Joy in the 5th. We said this is the type of people that relate Venus, okay? Connect, perhaps, is a better word. Connect, relate is more moon, connect through crisis. So certainly we have people in the upper echelons of the leadership. People do rule in China. The difficulty is that they connect through crisis. So, for example, if this would be women, it would not be the women that support will and consent, support this, support that. Maybe after an existential crisis they will change their mind, but they would be the women that accept the harsh realities of nature and can see the world as a little bit of a war for existence, and are okay. The fact that they are women does not make them any more tolerant or merciful, but also not any less competent. Okay, Scorpio is incredibly competent. It is ruled by the Lord of War, and psychological depth and strategy and courage. Yes, so they have these qualities. Their personal life might be a bit more obsessive or more complicated in this way. Mars, the ruler of the 10th, is in the 7th house, conjunct in Pluto. And the 7th house is in Leo, because this is ascendant Aquarius, with Sol in Libra in the 9th. Now, this is something very interesting. Although this country is called, it's known as the, the nation of where the sun rises. Yeah, the land of where the sun rises, the land of the rising sun. We could definitely see that the sun here is put in detriment in Libra, that is ruled by Venus, okay? Definitely it is kept that this chart will yield a country that where the people play a significant role in. There can be international conflict, because 7th house is partners, open enemies, okay? There could be important allies, but also conflict with those allies. Ruler of the 10th in the 7th, ruled by the sun in the 9th in fall. So here is a bit of a conflict. First of all, this Mars is conjunct in Pluto, so we have some hidden leaders, not by merit of 8th house, but by merit of Pluto. And again, with Pluto, nothing is hidden forever. It's a birthing type of hiding, okay? I always give the example of the Swiss banks, and they used to hide everybody's wealth until Switzerland decided to gladly expose every person that had hidden money in their banks, one day, and we had a lot of embarrassments here in Israel. We had a leader, CEO of one of the greatest Israeli banks. So, of course, having tax evasion type of, you know, stuff in Sweden. So with Pluto, yes, Pluto is good for hidden wealth, but it's more like a birthing sign. You want to think a bit like you have a baby. It is hidden for some while, then there is a baby bump, and then if all is well, then there is a baby born to life. Okay, you're not meant to keep that baby hidden forever. If you get that about Pluto, I pretty much gave you a reality check to opulence, because if you think opulence is hidden, wealth, both with Neptune and with Pluto, is not hidden forever. So, Mars with Pluto gives us some sort of hidden nature to the leadership that is associated with partners and open enemies. Sun in the ninth means from a different type. It can be in Libra, it can be leaders that are associated with court, with trade, but also with beauty industry internationally. So there is some sort of a hidden partnership, perhaps with what used to be the kingdom, or yes, the equivalent of the kingdom. But then Sun in Libra, Sun in detriment, I would believe and suppose that this is on purpose. Okay, we don't want to have one person that has too much power in China, following Mao. And this is evident in the structure of the regime and the structure of the party, basically. And this is evident in the positioning of the Sun in Libra. I assume that Chinese astrologers would look at it with completely different languages, but say pretty much the same thing. Okay, we know historically that follow the Cultural Revolution, there was a big decision in China that says we don't want one person to have all this much. We want to decentralize as well. Okay. So if we take a little bit the veil of Western colored glasses, yes, we understand that there are many ways to centralize, and here we're talking about absolutely making sure that no one person will be in good position or be able to take all that much power. But there is still here some allowance for connection with hidden leadership that is of royalty, or that is of even artistic related stuff. The Sun is close to Mercury and Neptune, so there can be a mythical leadership, perhaps because there was some need in the people to identify with this mythical leadership, but still have way more power than they used to. What we want to remember, so first of all, let's concentrate, not the whole chart, let's concentrate about the fourth house ruler, and the moon. So this chart definitely teaches us of an inherent structural problem in charts of nations. And this structural problem is basically when we want to have the ruler of the fourth house in the 10th, and we do want this to happen, we are in a position where that would necessarily put this planet in detriment. This is the structure of astrology. Preferably, we want not the fourth house ruler, okay, but the moon to be in the 10th house. Okay? However, we also must take a look at where is this moon? Because if this moon is in Scorpio, we did nothing. Okay, so the moon is ruling Cancer, is exalted in Taurus, and is okay in fire signs. Perhaps in Aries is a bit more problematic, okay, because it's a very aggressive war type of energy. But that again would mean, okay, so what can be the ascendant? While here, definitely in the case of China, and this is not a unique case at all because we are at the time of decentralizing the regime. And I will say it about the sun, and then I will give a more general rule about this, because there was a special attention to demote the sun. The sun is the center of power, is the leader. Okay? It was definitely an intended move, and this was not to the detriment of people, but to make sure that something like the Cultural Revolution won't happen again. Okay, so that no one man will have this much power over China. Okay? It's a very Aquarian notion of decentralization, and the ascendant is in Aquarius. This also means that the leader, the king, is could be an open enemy, but also a partner. Okay, the leader could be a partner, but we want to demote him. We don't want to put him in the 8th house or in the 6th house so much so. We put him in the 9th house, maybe it can be an advisor, a teacher, but definitely not, and the sun is at its joy in the 9th house, yes, but definitely not elevated. And in Libra, the sun is at its joy in the 9th house, but fallen. Okay, opposite is place of exaltation. So yes, we honor that there are leaders, we honor that there will always be solar figures, but we are doing something that will not put them all that much down so that they want to create trauma or betray the nation, like in the 8th house. But yes, in a way where they have some joy, 9th house, and some detriment. I don't know enough about Chinese philosophy, but I think here is something very much in the spirit. Okay, we don't want to put this person so much in detriment that they will rebel and revolt and betray and be hidden enemy. Okay? That's not the point. We want to be smart, but we also want to make sure that we don't give our power away so much to one person. All in all, I can say that this pre-elected chart with the moon in Aquarius is, I guess, one of the better options that they could do. Okay, if you want to keep the China stable, but not give too much power away, and you want to accentuate the people, then yes, you don't want the moon in Scorpio, you want the moon in Aquarius here. If we want decentralization, we have to have some Aquarian type. I said I will generalize this. Why? Because Saturn here, and here Saturn is in the 8th house. So this is the more problematic issue. The ruler of the ascendant is in the 8th house. It tells us that this China will go through a lot of upheavals. Okay? But you also want a Saturn here, because Saturn is not just the ruler of Aquarius, it's also the ruler of Capricorn. You want to make sure your Saturn has a little bit power, but not too much. To quote a Twitter post, I don't remember the name, you can write in the comment below, that said, I rather, I don't know, go through like horrible things and not live again through Saturn in Aquarius. Okay? So we know that Saturn, when it is strong, even in Aquarius, it does give us results that are difficult to live in. Okay? And so You want to have places in Aquarius because Aquarius is the sign of decentralization, of hierarchical structure. So we cannot do this Pluto and Aquarius stance without some placements in Aquarius. Moon in Aquarius, also we see this for the chart of United States. We, the people, in Aquarius is very much trying to go as a mass humanity level of people, okay? So yes, the moon in Aquarius is a good choice for that. It comes with its pros and cons. I mean, of course, you may rather have the moon in Cancer or in Taurus or even in Sag or even in Leo, okay? But if the moon is in Leo, it would be ruled by the sun, and then the people can be eclipsed. So this is why I would try to not have this for a nation. Okay, for a natal chart, you probably eclipsed unless it is your time. But for a nation, we stamp on the entire nation and everybody living in it. So statistically, there is the chance that instead of the king to be eclipsed, now every lose a lot of people, maybe to heart attack, maybe to other reasons. Because this is the nature of eclipses. They take the solar figures. If the people are the solar figures, so we, the people, suffer. This is a good reasoning to put the moon in Aquarius. So, yes, for the more water moons of us, it can be a little bit distant, cold, or far, or even square in some placements for us. But for the chart of a nation, it's a very relevant time to do this. However, we might want to think about where the detriment of the 4th house, okay, the opposite for the 4th house, is least troublesome. Okay? So, one way to do it is to have midheaven on Aquarius. Okay, that would be a science-oriented technology, but also astrology-oriented place, and the moon there. And so we won't have, but then we have another problem, which is we have a solar ruler for the 4th house. And so what I said about eclipses makes it not a good option. And you see that the 4th slide here. Okay, we will put not the midheaven in Aquarius, but actually the ascendant. So we still have a very important, not sun, okay, but definitely, yes, a luminary that represents the people. And so that is one thing to do. Another option is we have the 4th house ruler in Aquarius, with Aquarius in a relatively okay sign, and the moon in the 10th house. Okay, and then you have an ascendant with ascendant ruler that is relatively okay. Here's another option that you can vote. Or, like I said, you can think about where is the planet, what planets in their detriment are least harmful. Okay? So what would you prefer? A Venus in Scorpio in the 10th or a Jupiter in Gemini in the 10th? Those are the benefics. Yes, unless you want a malefic, which is problematic because if some people are born during day and some people are born during night, they would have different light sects, and that would mean that statistically half of your population is having a lethal transit whenever this 4th house thing is activated. So you're going to lose a lot of people in the process. A lot of people are going to die in various ways, or experience loss or poverty, or all kinds of, or war even, unnecessarily. So you want a benefic. And so would you rather have Jupiter in Virgo or in Gemini, would you rather have, let's say, Venus in Scorpio or in Aries? So definitely you don't want Venus in Aries, it is fallen. In Scorpio, problematic maybe, or perhaps a Jupiter in Gemini or in Virgo. Yes, but then it has its own sorts of problems. Okay, there is no problemless chart, but those are the things that you can play with and decide. Another option, which was used perhaps by the chart of Israel, is to put the midheaven and the ascendant, or the midheaven or the ascendant, on a significant fixed star that elevates the chart. Okay, and I will go right now to the natal chart of Israel. I don't remember where the moon is in Israel. And so, as for Palestine, okay, the Palestinian side of Palestine, I talked about the PLO chart, which is a bit weird because the Hamas are using the flag of the PLO, which is the opposition. So it's very, tricky. But I already mentioned that the moon there is in Capricorn, and this is a moon in detriment, and the situation for the people. Everybody was saying, oh, the Palestinians are the most resilient in the world. Yes, but why? Why should they be in such position? And this could easily be sorted out if the people were not such tremendously sacrificed for the PLO chart. And here I cannot blame Hamas. They did not pick this chart. If I was looking at the PLO, yes, I think also in Hamas they're not in a good position. But definitely the people were sacrificed, as well as in Ukraine, which I talked about in other episodes. Here, let's look. So the ascendant is on 23 degrees Libra, which is right conjuncting the fixed star Spica. And Venus is in Cancer. She's happy in Cancer. The midheaven is in Procyon, which is perhaps the reason Israel still exists. And so the raison d'etre for such a country is so that it will, with the sweetness of the tongue, be able to de-escalate nuclear danger. Okay, I talk about Procyon in length. You can scroll around my videos or search for a Procyon with this channel's name, and you see a lot of information. Those two things, okay, just the fixed stars, the vicinity to these very benefic royal stars, gives the country an uplift. Now, Procyon is in Cancer, so this is actually very good for the people, okay? And Cancer is in the 10th house, with a ruler in the 11th house in 4 degrees Leo. So the people in Israel have, from this vantage point, yes, from this vantage point, have little to complain, okay? The people in the 10th house, which is the Cancer in the 10th house, is ruled by the moon, okay, with the moon in the fire sign Leo. But here is where the big pitfall is. Pitfall number one, we said, what about Leo? Anything Leo is eclipse sensitive. Okay, the only thing we want eclipse sensitive in a chart of a nation, okay, and I mean solar eclipse, okay, lunar eclipse, yes, they matter, but it's unavoidable because there is always a moon, and the moon always represents the people, okay? But solar eclipse, the only thing we want there is the tyrants, okay? You might say we don't want the sun too strong in a chart of a nation. I say absolutely we don't. But we also don't want to go to the other extreme, which is perhaps a second series, but I will touch on this. Before that, Moon of Israel is conjuncting Pluto, which already gives this heavyweight sense. Okay, there's something secretive about the people. Weird, no? There is power play related to the people. Moon is not comfortable in conjunction to Pluto. Moon is where we are safe. Okay? I dare say Moon is also a bit uncomfortable in a solar house or in a, not solar house, solar sign, or in a the 11th house. Why? Because the 11th house is a public place. It creates too much dependency on being seen. Okay? And we've all seen what happens when Israeli people did not feel seen. Okay? In the world. It's still happening. But this also gives the vicinity to Pluto, gives us a reality where the people are not seen. But by whom? Sun. Okay, it's in Leo. Sun is the leaders. And so how can it be? Cancer is in the 10th house, but the ruler is in a power relation dynamic with the leaders. And not only that, this Sun, and other than that, the Moon is not suffering too much. It's conjunct in the midheaven, so the people are known, and indeed, whether you like them or you dislike them, people know the Israeli people. Okay, they have a name that goes. He knows them for something different, but they are not unknown. It's rare that you go and say, I'm Israeli, and nobody has a clue what you're talking about. So yes, it is a nation that is known by its people. It's also in the name, a Jewish and democratic state, which is a problematic definition, because the people are not only the Jews, okay, the Israelis are not only Jews, and so on. So as, let's say, a sextile to Neptune, if it contains Pluto, it's still in the Pluto sextile Neptune. I'm shocked to discover how far back the Pluto sextile Neptune goes. Okay, it's almost like a century sextile, on and off. And before I'll get to the Sun, because this is highly important. The 4th house here is Capricorn. And that tells me that even though there are no planets in Capricorn, is in Leo in the 11th, the 4th house, which is the ruler of the people, is in a sign that is of a lot of structure. But there is no way that Capricorn will, let's say, be the 11th. Okay, it's an inherent structural problem. So we did get Cancer, the people, for the 10th house, the leaders, with Sun in the sign of the leaders in Leo. Okay, so it's very accentuated. The problem that we had was Saturn as the ruler of the second ruler of the people. This tells me of difficulties that come from religion and orthodoxy, but also from bureaucracy. And unfortunately, this can make this country a little bit known for the difficulty for bureaucracy for its people, or the orthodoxy of its people. Unfortunately, it is at least somewhat true. Okay, if you want to be an Israeli citizen, I think it is no country in the world that does as much perils as Israel. Okay, and that has to do with the orthodoxy, but also with the history. Okay, And so, again, it's an inherent structural problem to do when we said, yes, we want the people to be in the 10th house, but this also tells us that the other people that are the same people are also very religious, very restrictive, very patriarchal. Okay? And this is an inherent structural problem. So that Israel is still dealing with today. And now we look at the ruler of this moon and Saturn. And this is the sun in Taurus next to Algol. I will not even touch on the Algol thing. I touched on it in other episodes, but the sun in the 8th house. Okay? Sun is the leader. And in a nation state, the leader is either the president or a prime minister of what we know up until today. Okay, it's all is about to go outdated with Pluto in Aquarius, but these are the categories we've been dealing with today. And so, what does it tell us? It tells us that, first of all, whenever there is an eclipse, yes, both rulers of the people, the moon and the ruler of the 4th, are touched. Whenever there is an eclipse. Whenever there is an eclipse. Okay? This even if I didn't tell you where the sun is, would tell me that this nation is going through a hell of a lot of upheavals, losses, sudden changes to the very identity of the regime. And the people are subjugated to the changes in the whatever the leaders are going through. If you lose a leader, the people are suffering from that, not by the structural merit of those people being subjugated, but rather by the moon and Saturn, the rulers of the people, being ruled by these leaders. And so it's kind of like the story of, there is actually a little bit of a sexist joke in Israel about a man that says, I am the man that says the last word in the house. And he says, what is the last word in the house? He says, yes, ma'am. Meaning, yes, my wife. So this gives us a situation like this between the people and the leader. But to make it a bit more complex, the leader is Sun in the 8th house in Taurus, with Venus, the ruler of Taurus, in Cancer in the 10th house. So it gives us a very intricate power relations where we have a very strong woman that is the general of the kitchen, and a very strong man that has always says the last word in the house, and this is, yes, my wife. Now, one of the actually scandals, because 8th house can give us scandals, it's things we swipe under the rug, with the Prime Minister Netanyahu and his spouse, Sarah Netanyahu, and the many jokes that he is ruled by Sarah, and he's indeed Sun in Libra, which is ruled by Venus. And so the joke, a lot of the jokes were about the things that Sarah would order to eat. So the type of expense, she wanted luxury ice cream, or even, the kind of buffet or stuff like the baker. It's very simple stuff if you think about it. They didn't order like gourmet dinners. It's just like she wanted some ice cream and she wanted some croissants or something like that. Or the burekesim, okay? But those became scandalous because of the sum of money she spent, and also they like to travel. So yes, and so this was this created a lot of scandals where the image of a prime minister was seen basically through to his wife that liked to eat comfort food. Basically, when you think about it, and spend a lot of money on comfort food. 8th house is also kind of like where we take the money from, and so But another thing of the eighth house sun here in Taurus is that the leader is in so much of a stress, okay, that they are bound to either betray. Eighth house is one of the houses of betrayal, or be betrayed, or deal with themes of betrayal. And this is not a specific prime minister or minister. It means that certain source of wealth stream that comes into the country by the merit of this eighth house is exposing the leader, which is also ruler of the people, okay? And ruled by the people. There is a synergic relationship with the leaders and the people in Israel, which also must admit exists. They exposes everyone to themes of betrayal. Okay, it's structural. And so I have to say, you know, people talk about the Kissinger saying Israel would not last beyond this and that and so on, and hidden wealth, and all these things are true. That being said, when I look at this chart, I definitely see a chart with a raison d'etat for keeping the region sort of nuclear stable. And I also see this Venus ruling the ascendant in Cancer and ruling the 8th house in a public house, okay, in the 10th house. So Israel cannot hide its wealth too much, okay? We're actually known for our secret services like the Shabak and Mossad, which I find completely hilarious. You wouldn't think a country would be known for its secret, okay? Spies and stuff. And what we're known is for the quality of those people, okay? So they're good quality, they say. So this is quite funny, okay? But I also see that for everything that is problematic, there is also either it is very visible or there is something that can correct this. For example, if we turn to Procyon, we can remedy the people. Okay? If we turn to Spica, we can remedy the leaders. Each of them will remedy both the people and the leaders. If we turn to Algol, there's many more things that we can remedy, including problematic things that happen in the training of the militant forces and perhaps even the secret services, okay, in how they are trained, and they could be trained by our, internationally, so to speak. So definitely we know that if there are interests that are stranger, foreign, they would be easily exposed because 8th house ruler is in the 10th house. Israel cannot hide too much. Okay, ruler of the 12th house is very strong, is in Mercury in the 10th. But this is also ruler of the 9th house. Mercury rules children, rules trade, rules technology. Israel is known as a start-up nation. Okay. And we also have Uranus in 24 degrees Gemini. So Israel has not even begun its troubles for this decade or two. And so that is a very intricate relations. Overall, when I see this particular study case, I see incredibly intricate relations, and a lot of good intentions in the chart, more so than I expected, but we cannot avoid being funded, which is 8th house. Okay, it's not just the secrets we have, which again, secrets are not eternal. Okay, but especially not when the ruler is in the 10th. We are known for secrets, eh? But also a country, especially when it is a new country, it needs funding. So somebody has to build the structure. Somebody has to build, the roads, the water, the buildings. Okay. The big pitfall again is the 12th house, very strong ruler of the 12th, in the 9th. I think we absolutely see this with the conflict Israel is in. Okay, she's facing tremendous difficulty to do with the media. Okay, and 10th degree Gemini is Aldebaran, and this is about winning land. So this is a very difficult thing, and Virgo for 12th is pharmaceuticals. Yes, it's chemical stuff. It's chemistry, and it is medicine. Okay, it's a caretaking sign, but it's also trade, and Mercury is children. Yes, so betrayal can come through these venues and on the international arena, but also to do with philosophy and religion, a worldview. And international stuff, and so the WHO and WEF, the Pfizer fiasco, are things that we've seen, but is not the only story. The children of Yemen, okay, stuff like that. So, all in all, I do have a problem with this position of the moon. This moon could easily be in Cancer. This moon could easily be in Cancer. But it is not impossible that if we wanted Procyon for a midheaven and Spica for ascendant, then we have to sacrifice the moon, but could remedy it by Procyon. Okay, so again, I cannot say that, we were swindled or something like that upon this election. It's not like, Ukraine chart or Palestinian or at least PLO chart that you could easily see where the people are like the last consideration. Moon on the 22nd degree, like stuff that are crazy. So you also have to look at this, okay? And yes, astrocartography is important. Which country do I choose to live in? This is also important. Yes, for example, I am a Pisces ascendant. This Moon, Pluto, Saturn, Mars in my 6th house makes me unable to make a living in Israel as an employee. Okay, and even when I want to have a business, because this is Saturn in my 6th, then it restricts my physical health. And indeed, most of the problems, I had the Jupiter in the 10th, so I was be easily promoted. Jupiter in Sag here. Yes, it's right on my midheaven, so this country is very good for my midheaven, but it's horrible when it comes to my physical health. I probably, if I ever want to have children, I probably should have at least a vacation and then maybe go back to Israel when the children are already born. But if I want to just take a job or something like this, completely impossible. But this is not an Israel problem. Okay, it's a Pisces ascendant in Israel problem. Okay, so you also have to understand this. When I say country has this great thing, you also have to take a look how this country's chart interacts with your chart, and then at astrocartography and stuff like that. Now let's take a look at some other country. What country are people interested in? I don't know if you will find Congo. I know there is India, yes, but I think by now I gained your trust a little bit. If you are listening still, then we can talk about more marginalized more marginalized topics. And again, we have a chart in Astro theme. We have an exact hour from the 1960. So Congo right now is going through tremendous upheavals. We have probably over 6 million dead people if we talk about genocide levels. So again, perhaps I will not use the term genocide because it's like, is it legal, not legal to call it like this, to call it like that? Definitely 6 million people dead in Congo is not a sustainable situation for humanity. Okay? And now we have a very interesting chart here. First of all, the ascendant is adjacent to Algol. And Moon in 0 degrees Gemini, but still separating from conjunction to this ascendant. Everything, this chart should be named Everything Wrong with Congo. The midheaven, let's talk about something good, not to just be something bad all the time. So the midheaven is in 21 degrees Aquarius in the 10th house. Is first of all, not really adjacent, yes, but let's say if you would work with Deneb Algedi, then you could remedy a lot of stuff here. You could remedy the leadership, but if you worked, in favor of humanity, and this is important to remember because there are many ways to work with Deneb Algedi. Yes, I'm not talking about human sacrifice for Deneb Algedi. I'm talking about petitioning Deneb Algedi, about connecting it with the correct herbs or making talismans. It's about wealth redistribution, protection of the marginalized or the outcast. And here is the leadership, yes. But the midheaven is not on the Deneb Algedi, and it's not a tight enough orb to call this a conjunction. So Saturn is also very strong here in the 9th house, which is actually detriment, okay, strong Saturn. But the ascendant on Algol. First of all, it tells me that those who have reverence for Algol or Medusa Gorgon, or whichever local deity is associated with the Beta Persei set of stars that eclipse each other every 3 days, this could be called upon for the benefit of Congo. The issue here, if I take it the way Lada presented this, so the ancient would say Algol is associated on a mundane level with bodies upon bodies, okay, so mass death. However, magically, it is probably one of the most, if not the most protective, shielding talismans of exactly these atrocities. And so Algol could be called upon magically. When the moon is conjunct in this ascendant, even in a separating aspect, it still applies. It tells me that the people, okay, are very much, first of all, in the 2nd house, they are possession. The assets, okay? Yes, your possessions is the 2nd house. They are possession. But also, they are still in this, the luring danger of the dead bodies upon bodies, unless they address this magically, is still evident. But this is not even the beginning of everything wrong with Congo. The 4th house is Leo. So, okay, one nice thing to say about 4th house Leo, and I will give a positive example. I looked at thriving businesses by local people in, I think it was Nigeria. And one of the business owners, she went to study, I think, in Britain, and then came back and opened a business, a winery, in her home country. And she called this, by the way, you can purchase her stuff. I don't get dividends from that. She called it Rain. Rain as in RIGHN. GN. RIGN. Okay? And her concept was that the local people, they had to do some agriculture to mine, not to mine, to bring in the grapes and turn it into, I think they make whiskey actually, which is unusual in all kinds of tastes and so on. So their labor is very difficult and tedious, and she wanted them to feel appreciated. And she said that every person in the company is a king, they reign. And so this would make people feel valued and appreciated and honored and proud to do this very tedious job, and there is only so much that she could pay. But it's a local business. She is Nigerian, I think. And so fourth house in the chart of a nation is basically giving us a little bit of the same thing, okay? That the people, not the leaders, are reigning, okay? And so this is a nice thing to say. Of course, when we talk about eclipses, it means that this is a very eclipse-sensitive type of people, and this is where the problems come in, because now the eclipses can take not the kings, but the people. Now, another issue. First of all, another nice thing to say, the ruler of the moon is in the fourth house. So the ruler of the people is in the fourth house, okay? This means that, and it is in Leo, okay? Again, it gives us another eclipse sensitivity. However, from the fourth house, it gives us a little bit more autonomy, because it's more like, yes, the people are possessions, but even the leaders, okay, are the people, okay? The leaders are amongst the people, and they stay within the people. So this is also a nice thing to say. It's not a solar figure that is up in the 10th house, okay? And not only that, Aquarius is the 10th. Okay, so there's another signification of the leaders is the 10th house ruler, which is Saturn, but this is an Aquarius. So this is a less problematic sign, but Saturn is still in Capricorn. Still traditional, even if in a roundabout way, because it's a retrograde Saturn. Now to the problems. Other than the fact that this chart is so solar eclipse sensitive, and you say, yes, but only when the nodes are around this or around that. No. No. Leos are eclipse sensitive. Okay? And when this is a nation, the people in a nation, yes, this gives us a lot of magnification of this issue. There can be good things around this, but the solar eclipse, we know that they take away leaders. And if those leaders are the people, they will take away those people. Okay? So this is to be predicted. Now, before we even talk about this 22-degree sun, if you watch me, you already noticed this. The sun is conjuncting Uranus. This is not necessarily a bad thing, because it tells me that the people in this case, that are also the leaders, are also rebellious. There's something unusual about them. They can be even technology savvy. Okay, this gives us people that are very performative, and they need this appreciation for the ego, and they may have a lot of love for the motherland, by the way. Even radical love. But they can also be very science and technology oriented. So there is a lot of potential. If people said Israel is a startup nation, Uranus in the fourth is absolutely a startup nation. Okay, Congo could absolutely be a startup nation. I know nothing about Congo, so there's a lot of potential here. That being said, when the sun is in the 22nd degree, according to Nicolas Stoyanovich degree theory, this degree of to kill and be killed, yes, one of the things you could do magically is work with not only Algol but also fixed star Al-Qaeda or the 22nd lunar mansion. It's not just about reputation but also about these things. And Al-Qaeda, not Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda is about protection from assassination. So it's a very literal thing that you could petition to or show reverence to magically. However, on a mundane level, and we know statistically not everybody has an Al-Qaeda shrine in their house, then what we can say here is, and I will finish with Congo because I'm losing battery now. What we can say here is that both the leaders and the people can kill or be killed. It can mean that the people definitely can carry arms or can kill. And now the proximity to Uranus becomes more difficult because Uranus, it unites unpredictably and divides unpredictably. It scatters and unites. So what it can do, it can give us a battle of egos that is lethal, kind of like a civil war. It can also mean, because this is a sun, it can also have the duality of the people and the leader. Okay, so the leader is of the people, but when they come down to the people, they don't come down in peace, but actually to kill the people. Okay, sun on 22nd degree is, is assassin. Is to kill and be killed. And this is a very problematic degree. This is the type of thing that already leads me to think that when this country was pre-elected, there was not, it could be like a case study for multiple either genocides or social revolution. This can be like a mad scientist experiment of how do these things occur, and more to study that from like Jupiter in the 8th house doesn't add freedom. It's actually adding a little bit, it magnifies themes of the 8th house, which unfortunately is upheavals and traumas. And here they are associated with freedom. Mars is the ruler of the 12th house, so there is hidden enemies that come here to the 2nd, so there is also war on resources in some way. Mars is adjacent to Aldebaran, so this is actually a victorious Mars, but and victorious is for land, material gain by hidden enemies. So invasion. It's not invasion to the land. Okay, you see the ruler of this Mars is in the 4th house. It's not direct. But I see here a chart that is incredibly that this could be everything wrong about Congo, okay? And here you see the people are not to blame. Those types of charts, this can be a chart where, and I don't know the history of the foundation of Congo, we will say, okay, you want the country, this is the country, this is the election. And this is a little bit of a set-up trap. Okay, and here I must say, it's not the problem that this is a bad king or a bad leader. Maybe there is, I don't know. But definitely, this is a structural problem in the chart. lethal radical conflicts. So the potential, yes, potential is absolutely a startup nation. Although very religious and so on, yes, but absolutely. But you see that it was not given with any work al Gol, have reverence for Al Qaeda. Yes.
English?
Oh, it's okay.
You can stay. You can stay. We just close the kitchen and the cafe.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you want anything else.
Oh, no, thank you. So, yes, so basically, there is a lot of a manual here that was not presented with this chart to make it work. And yes, we have a midheaven in Aquarius, but this Saturn is too strong to be good for a nation. Okay, it's too restrictive. Yes, it is retrograde. Yes, it is in a Piscean degree. 12 degrees, a bit of a manifest, but this is manifesting restrictions here. And the vicinity to Algol is, yes, you don't do this to a country. Yes, maybe if it was, a country of people who worship Algol to begin with, maybe yes, but, you don't do this to a country. This is what I see here. And so, who elects these charts? We don't know. We know that there is an X such as XR, people that are member in different types of communities that are more or less secretive, and you have these connections, and then you are more exposed to leadership positions and what they study. They don't tell you. It's not what you study in the academia. It's what you study within those closed groups, and that doesn't allow us a lot of understanding as to who are the people behind this chart. But what can be done is to look at this, to see the patterns, and to observe at the charts that are presented. Because you could end up in a chart, and also to get to know what can you do for the remedy. So if you live in Israel, you almost must know of Perseon and Spica and Algol. If you live in Congo, you must know Algol and Aldebaran. For Israel, Aldebaran as well. And so this is something that we, the people, need to know about. If you see Moon in the 22nd degree of Scorpio, let's say, even in the 10th house, you understand that people were sacrificed in the decision-making process. So this is why I'm making this astrological considerations for declarations of independence, so we can be more informed, and we can also look at the considerations behind our nations, because sometimes instead of blaming the prime minister or blaming the government, you could look at the chart and you see, okay, what can be done with this chart rather than with this person or with this corporation even. And this is important, okay? Even in the age of Aquarius, where we decentralize things, we outthrow things, of course, many things happen, and in every country it is different, and it leads to kind of many, desires to do justice and to sever ties with the unjust, and to hang people, to exile people, and so on, to kind of keep them accountable or put them to justice. Yes, but we must also look at what charts we are working in and work correctly, work smartly. When you look for a person, okay, yes, it's good to keep people accountable, but when you look for a person and you miss the structure, so you could have this person and that person and that person, you run into the same problem. If this problem stems not from the person, but from the chart. So this is why it's good to look at. Also, you must look if you're thinking, oh, where should I move to? Oh, with Israel, the moon is not so bad as in Palestine, and so on and so forth. You also want to look at the chart against your chart and make a synastry. Okay, Israel is a great country for my career and a public reputation, but is a horrible country for my physical health and for if ever I want to yes, be employed. Yes, so let's say I need to take a part-time job or this job or that job. No, I have Saturn, I have Mars, I have Pluto, I have Moon there, where if I go to a job, then I will be sick, very likely, and won't be performing so well. And so we're likely to be demoted or sick or unable to work, which is the situation actually as it is. Okay. But then when it comes to, let's say, my public reputation or my career or my life mission, actually Jupiter is next to my life mission. So to be here is actually progressive for me on kind of like the bigger picture, but I have to watch my health. Okay, and by the way, my heart is indeed a very sensitive, actually. So yes, and the problem I had at work is actually I would work with people. I love people, but I would have sore throat, and I would need to go to the bathroom all the time because I would drink a lot of water and would have allergies. And so this sore throat basically is a heat. Yes, the neck is Taurus, Sun in Taurus, but ruling the 6th house. Mars brings inflammation. Okay, so sore throat. So I couldn't speak with people. The only way it was sorted was when I have Uranus in the 10th house. So when I began to do astrology, or alternatively, I became a part of a little revolution at the workplace. And so, yes, and so I expressed myself, and then it created shock, but also for me. So it was very difficult. But astrology is more a thing to do that can allow for my voice to be expressed in a way that focuses on when the benefit is and not so much on where the ailment is. And so, yes, that alongside with the issues of having a Leo for a 6th house, it's kind of like having the king being the minor or something like that. Of course, you don't get too much of a performer. You get a lot of show, but you don't get too much of a sustainable performer because they need to be adored and admired and appreciated and to shine and express themselves creatively. Not many jobs can do that. Yes, so this is how an example of your own. And this is something, yes, you want to consider this because astrocartography is a good thing. It's accentuating a certain line in your chart. Okay, you want, let's say, Venus is doing well with you, you want to have more Venus, so you go along your Venus line. But the chart of the country will also bring things to your chart. Okay? And so that can be more or less benefic to you according to those synastries. And you would need to work differently with them. Yes? So I hope this was helpful. Again, I can only manage so much because it is a lengthy conversation. And I hope it gives you more of a full picture of the intricacy of the consideration, but also the ability to see, to accommodate for the intricacy and still make a judgment of when you say, you know, when the rulers of the people are so much in detriment, or of the leaders, by the way, then you understand that there are problems and you know these charts are pre-elected. So thank you for watching.